my name's Claudette and I'm the Communications Manager at Legal Vision and the little face in the thumbnail from the RSVP you all received. So firstly, welcome to everyone. We're so excited to have an incredible lineup of people to share their knowledge on business, legal, and all of the bits and bobs that you are no doubt going to ask lots of questions to them. So I hope you've got notepads at the ready. Also, you can tweet questions and hashtag LVWIT, so LVWIT, and we'll be looking for that as well. So this essentially was born out of a number of events that I myself attended and chatting with Ursula about the presence of women in small to medium businesses and startups. So this is an incredible space. Today at lunch I snuck out and attended an event on empowering women internationally through SMEs and through business, and had quite a damning stat about the top 500 Forbes list has more people called John than women. So I am so excited that you are all here to hopefully change that, because that's not acceptable and I think we can all agree on that. So without further ado, I'm going to hand over to our moderator, Ursula Hochman, who is also our General Counsel at Legal Vision, and she'll introduce all of our panels. So please make her welcome.
Hello everyone, thank you very much for coming. We're absolutely delighted to see you. We welcome nearly 100 attendees tonight, which is fantastic acknowledgement of how many women there are in business interested in growing their business. Out of interest, how many people here are business owners or would like to be a business owner? How many people have left a well-paid job or taken a salary cut to be where they are? Hello, Legal Vision team. The food and wine is particularly for all people with your hands up now. How many of you have or are thinking about raising capital? Excellent, and we hope there'll be even more after we hear from the wisdom of our panelists. And most importantly, how many of you are following your passion? How many of you love what you do and want to see it grow? Fantastic. Legal Vision's a huge supporter of women in business, and that goes all the way through from our team, our clients, and also the free information that we provide from online to events like this. But it's 2016. Why are we still holding a Women in Tech event? Are we equally represented in business, in tech, in management, outside of fabulous places like Legal Vision? The answer is no, we're just not. US study found last year there was about 50 billion invested by venture capitalists in businesses. 7% was invested in women-owned business. Does anyone know how many Australian businesses there are run by women that are backed by investors? Anyone know what percentage? Anyone like to guess?
20, 25%?
Guess 20, 25%? 13%, 15%, 4%. That's just crazy. So what happens when women run businesses? This must be not particularly good if people aren't supporting them. Did you know women in companies with women on the executive team are proven to be more successful than companies without women on the executive team? Backing it up with some research, a US study over 12 years of Fortune 1000 companies, that's like on an ASX 200, found over 12 years the women CEO-led companies had returns that were 226% times better than the counterparts run by men. Pretty convincing statistic. Apparently women are more efficient with capital. We always knew that. We run companies on 2/3 less funds than our male counterparts. And female-led companies bring in 12% higher return and earn 35% higher return, and that's specifically in the women in tech space. And most exciting for anyone who is looking to take on capital and or sell, Apparently companies with women entrepreneurs achieve higher valuations on capital raising and initial public offering. That's fantastic. We want you to be part of those statistics and part of this success. Our panellists are successful entrepreneurs in their own right, and they're also women who advise other business owners. We're just so glad that they're here tonight to share their journey, which will hopefully assist you with your journey. In terms of what's next, we've got about 30 minutes for our panel with some set questions, and then we'll go to question and answer from the audience. And then we have more food, more wine, and please take the opportunity to meet each other, speak to your panellists. We'd be delighted to speak to you. So, who are we going to hear from tonight? Delighted to introduce Liz Kaalaman, dietitian and foodie turned founder of YouChoose, a leading Australian food tech startup making it easy to find amazing food in business. Liz, in her past life, was a researcher at Harvard, Secretariat for the World Health Organization, and international sales for Fortune 500 food companies. In her new life, she's a mentor for the Sydney Lean Startup Machine, pitch coach for the School of Social Entrepreneurs in Australia, recent finalist at SidStart, and founder of the Food Tech Australia Meetup Group, as well as YouChoose. A little known fact about Liz is she met her YouChoose CTO through a musical ad on YouTube.
It really works.
It really works. Melissa. Mel is an accountant and founder of the accounting business AT&T. She's also co-founder of a boutique financial planning business called The Money Bar and co-director of Thinkers Inc., which is an innovative long-term daycare centre. Mel understands what it takes to be successful in more than one area. She's very generous sharing her knowledge. She's the author of 2 business books, More Money for Shoes and Fabulous But Broke. And she writes for publications including Sydney Morning Herald and regular media commentator.
Get it out of your box.
Did you know about Mel? She loves hats and shoes, and she's featured in Madison, Elle, Cosmopolitan, Gloss, Clio, and Harper's Bazaar, which I think is probably more than Kate Moss. Next, we are delighted to welcome Sarah Lucas. She was a senior sales manager and marketing executive at Macquarie, at Rothschild and Aon, and now she was the co-founder of Heads Over Heels and Enrich Me, which are both organisations that assist women to succeed in business. The creator of the Kitchen Table, Money Lux, and a financial advisory business. Sarah's focus is on mind and money, and she's on a mission to enrich women financially and personally. A fun fact about Sarah, she lives in a very male-dominated household. Her husband is male, that's not unusual. Her sons are male, all 3 of them, and even her dog is male. So she balances that with some beauty and pampering sideline business to help balance the estrogen. And last of all, welcoming Julia Bickerstaff. Julia was a partner at global consulting firm Deloitte. She's a finance expert on Australia's Channel 7 show Koshi's Business Builders, a regular on ABC's Finance Quarter. Julia changed her life and those of many others when she founded the Business Bakery, which is a tech-driven online business advice focused on helping micro-businesses earn a healthy income. Did you know today is Julia's birthday? This is a tribute to Julia's generosity that she's chosen to share her birthday with us here tonight. Okay.
That's a better way of spending my birthday.
100 yes. First question that I would like to know, and interested to know is, what's your why? So why did you start a business? What's your business purpose? What's your passion? Because so many of us are either starting a business or thinking about it because of what we feel so passionate about.
Okay.
So I was a partner at Deloitte, and I worked with fast-growing technology companies, and I had I had a job which I enjoyed, but I sort of really wasn't very passionate about it, and that's just, you know, the truth. I mean, I had a very good job, I got paid very well, it was a fun job, but I didn't really feel, I just sort of felt there was something a bit missing in that. And I've got 4 children, and when my third was born, I just really knew that although I enjoyed what I did, it didn't really drive me. It didn't really feel like something that I was passionate about. And at the same time, I had collected and worked with a number of really micro businesses. And I don't know if any of you know any solo businesses, but they're sort of women who make cakes from home, make clothes, sell kids' clothes online, make jewellery, artists, or people like audiologists, people running their own business. And it's, you know, it sounds really fun to be in control of everything, but it's very, very overwhelming. There is just so much to do. People get very, very overwhelmed. And when it's just you, your confidence takes a complete nosedive. And so you're overwhelmed and underconfident. And I really enjoyed helping these businesses. I just loved it. I had a little tribe of them, which I helped. And the challenge for me was, I really wanted to do something with them, but the challenge is, how do I, to be honest, go from a job that pays very well to working with a number of micro businesses, solo businesses, who, you know, can't pay for the sort of help that I wanted to give. And that was my challenge. That's when I started the business bakery. I've been running it for 8 years. We've had the highs and lows, but you know, I'm still here 8 years later, so it's working. And it is the sort of thing that I wake up in the morning, I get up very early in the morning because that's when I work best, and around 4 kids I have to get up and do something before they are out there. And that's what gets me up at 4 or 4:30 in the morning to do stuff. And the sort of things, so people write to you and say, you know what, this has actually really changed my life, it's really changed my business. I mean, it makes me cry, some of the things I read, but that's when I know that this really is my why, and that is absolutely why I do it. And if you can find something like that, it is the most fulfilling thing. It absolutely is. I could talk for ages, but I won't, because I know I've got lots of other people to.
Thanks, Julia. I'd love to be able to sit here and say I made a grand decision to leave my job and start a business, but it didn't happen like that. I was director at Macquarie Bank. I was working in margin lending. I was on the fast track to executive director. It was all going really well. And then all of a sudden, the global financial crisis happened. And for every one job, there were 30 people fighting over the job, like seagulls over a chip. I decided to leave the business. Macquarie sold the margin lending business, and I decided not to stay. And I sat on the beach for a little while. I was a little bit burnt out after unwinding lending during an equities disaster. And there's a whole other topic of stories I could tell you about that experience. But after I'd sat on the beach for a couple of months, I went, okay, I'm bored now. What shall I do now? And had a conversation with my subsequent co-founder of Heads Over Heels, which, why aren't more women starting high growth businesses? There's lots of micro businesses, but what do you have to do to get a woman to start a business that's going to be a 5, 10 million EBIT business? And we said, well, they're just the real point of inflection, the pain point is that we don't have the connectivity. And I'm not talking about tech connectivity, I'm talking about human connectivity. The people who have the power and the people who have the control are the people who have the money. So what do we need to do to connect women who want to grow to the people who have the money? So we created Heads Over Heels to facilitate that, to connect them to the people with capital and the people who could open the doors and offer them huge opportunities, so distribution deals with Qantas and human resources opportunities with J&J and that kind of thing. So I did that for a little while, founded a social enterprise, moved on, found myself back in private equity, flying all over Asia and doing deals. Hated the people I was working with, just soul destroying, completely soul destroying. And I'm sitting in the Mandarin Oriental in Hong Kong going, oh, this is really wonderful 5-star luxury, but I'm so unhappy. And so one day I quit. And I'd had a couple of other experiences, as Ursula said. I founded Enrich Me, which was to help women with financial literacy and financial education, because for 20 years I'd seen women grappling with situations where they simply didn't have the financial knowledge to be able to help themselves, and Mel's very active in that area as well. Founded a financial advice business at the critical point where the regulations changed and I needed $500,000 in capital to actually grow it, and I went, the risk-reward ratio is just not here. I'm better off putting $500,000 in CDA shares or BHP shares. So I sold that business. And now I've found, I mushed around for a little while, not really knowing what to do or who I was and feeling incredibly lost. And now I think I've found myself again as somebody who really enjoys enabling and empowering people. And I do that through writing. I have a blog, sarahlucas.com.au, which is about mind and money. I run the kitchen table, which Ursula mentioned, which is about bringing women together once a month where we talk about how to really empower yourself around personal finance. And I have a beautiful cosmetics and skincare line on the side as well, which I love because it's so feminine and fun. So that's my why. It was all by chance, really. Chaos, nirvana out of chaos, which is not a terribly smart business strategy. Sometimes it just works out that way.
So I guess my overwhelming why personally is I'm a Western Sydney bogan. So I was born out in Blacktown in the western suburbs. Came through a very abusive childhood, and so I'm all about giving back personal power. And it's funny when I look at my 3 businesses, that's what each one's about, and particularly personal power with women, because that's what I experienced. I experienced that complete loss of personal power, so everything I'm about is to give that back. So first is ATA, which is my accounting firm, which was a complete accident to start. I just wanted to fund some study and to have a few clients on the side. And it grew into a beast that I just had to look at and decide, well, what is my why with that? Which has become inspiring, empowering and educating women on how to actually understand and to grow their businesses. So I write about interesting things like shoes and handbags and kind of have a whole lot of fun with that, which is cool. The Money Bar grew out of that, so that was another accidental business where the ASIC forced accountants to talk about self-managed super funds through being a financial planner. So we created the Money Bar, and it's all about financial fitness, financial flexibility and financial options. Because I believe between 28 and 48 you have that come to Jesus moment where you go, oh, I need to financially grow up. And so Money Bar is all about helping you do that. And then Thinkers Inc., which seems strange that a person that decided not to have children owns a preschool, to have a fleet of preschools. But again, I think that we've created a society of doers. Our school system is still stuck in the industrial method where it's a sausage factory and we're churning out doers. But in our society now we need thinkers. So Thinkers Inc. is a legacy project where I want to create the next generation of entrepreneurs and artists and CEOs. So I founded with a beautiful educator, so I have nothing to do with the kidlets, thank God, for them, not for me. And I'm all about strategy and finance behind it and making sure our dream of changing the school system become possible.
Hi everyone. So if you had asked me what my why was a month ago, it would have been very different. So if you had asked me a month ago what my why was, it would have been to help people eat better food in the office. So my background is in nutrition and dietetics. And I fell into my business as well because I was working as a sales representative in Western Sydney. And I'm not from Australia. So I had just gotten here and gotten a transfer. And the job that I was in, I sold nutrition products. So what I had to do was try to get in front of GPs in order to educate them about the products with the hope that they would recommend those products to their patients. And in order to do that, I had to buy them lunch. And it was a pain in the frickin' butt. They all had, a lot of dietary requirements. Many of them are not Australian born, so they have very interesting preferences. And I was walking around KAYCEE trying to find halal meat in a very Chinese area, brand new to Sydney, and when I would pay someone to do this for me. So I went online to see if there was any service where I could order catering for offices and make it really easy, and there was nothing there. And that was my light bulb, and I went, I'm gonna do that. I have never taken a business class. I have absolutely no business experience. These women are financially literate.
I am not. I can balance a checkbook. That is the extent of my financial literacy. You know, I have no debt or anything like that, but I had never done a business. So everything I've done has been on the job. And you choose, so it's CHEWS. I have lots of business cards for you to take away today. But the purpose of our business is that we're trying to make it really easy for you to order great catering for your office through small local food businesses who rely on increased revenue to keep their doors open. So I would have said that was my why, that I want to eat better food. 2 months ago, I was accepted into a program called the Marketing Academy, which is fascinating because I have no marketing experience. So what it is, it's meant to be a leadership course for potential high-level CMOs who are in the middle of their career to develop them into leaders, but I happen to know one of the judges who said, just apply, I'm a judge. And I got through. And in the third interview, the woman who actually founded the program, she's in the UK, she kept saying, why are you doing this? I said, I want people to eat better food. She goes, why? I said, I don't know. And she goes, no, why? Why do you want that? I said, well, you know, because people deserve better. And she's like, why do they deserve better? Why do you care? And I went, well, we just have to. Like, we have to be the best. And she's like, why do you have to be the best? And I went, okay, you know what? It took me a really long time. It was like a very awkward, uncomfortable silence while I thought about it. And I went, you know why? Because I actually, genuinely, really do care about people. I do. And I love food more than anything. It's like my favorite, like it's all I ever think about, like is when my next meal is coming from. And I just thought, I really love people. So what am I trying to do? I'm trying to educate them. That's what I'm trying to do. You have better options. You might not want my option, which is okay. But I really just want to educate you. There is a better option for you, you know? So that's really why we do what we do.
Thank you all. I really appreciate you sharing your purpose. Partly because so many of us here are so purpose-driven, but also because I know from anyone who had researched any of you, you would have seemed like shining examples of people who've never faltered on your path. And to hear that that's actually not true, and that successful business owners have gone through all these stumbles and challenges and hurdles is incredibly important, I think, to help everyone else keep going too. Thank you. We've talked about your purpose as founders, but no business that just has one person is going to thrive because no one person can do everything. So how did you find the right people for your team? What did you focus on in the early days and what did you delegate? And has that changed over time? And Liz, I know you've just had a recent staffing change, so I'm very interested to hear from you.
Thank you. So my lovely operations manager got ill 2 weeks ago, so not only have I been running the business, but also operations. So that's been really fun and challenging and scary and tiring. So I guess for us, you know, I didn't really know what I was doing in the beginning when it came to hiring people. I've never hired anyone. I never fired anyone. I'd never done any of those things before, so I didn't really know what to look for. And so I just kind of did it. I just kind of went, does anyone want to help me? Does anyone want to, you know, does anyone want to, I have this thing, can you help me out? And it really hasn't been, so we've been going for a little bit more than 2 years, and it really is only now that I've kind of figured out the kind of people that I want. I always managed to find them, but I could never articulate like who they were or why. And I think the culture that you set in your business kind of just happens around you as like the business owner. And this is, if there's anything that you take away tonight, and I could be totally full of crap, like maybe don't listen to me, like maybe it is relevant to you and maybe it isn't. But here's how you set a culture. You're either an asshole or you're not an asshole. Those are the only two things, because you don't know anything else, and I'm not an asshole. You know? So you know, when I found people, and I have a fun business, right? So to your point around the singing ad, so I'm a singer. So everyone tries to find a tech co-founder for their startup. It is a big, you know, issue and problem in the community. So I went, how can I stand out? So what I did was took the Bob Marley song, No Woman, No Cry, and made it No Tech Co-Founder, No Cry. And just put it up online and put it up on Facebook and said, does anybody know anyone? And what that did was attract the like-minded people who would come to me because they saw that it was fun. I take my business really, really seriously. I don't take myself too seriously. Life is short, you know? So that kind of like brought people to me in that respect. And now what I do is I look for 3 things. The first is intelligence. So they have to be able to pick things up pretty quickly. Because in a startup, I'm sure Lachlan, the CEO, will tell you, he'll be like, okay, everyone, we're doing this today. And then 6 hours later, he's like, okay, we're doing something totally different, actually. Everything is totally different today, right? They're laughing, so that's just how a startup is, right? So you need to find people who are clever enough to pick that up and run with it when that happens multiple times a day. So that's the first thing, intelligence. I call it sharp. You have to be sharp. The second is that you have to be willing. So you might be really smart, but you might be like, you know what, I'm tired of things changing every 6 hours. Well, if that's the case, my business is probably not the place for you because I am still figuring it out. So you will get those emails at 3 in the morning saying, everything I just told you yesterday, we're doing something completely different. And if you are okay with that, you will probably be okay in my organization. And the third thing, which is the most important thing, is that you have to have a kind heart. I'm tired, guys. You know what I mean? Like, I've been doing this like non-stop for 2.5 years. I'm exhausted, and when I go to work, I want to go to work with people that I really, really like. I want to hang out with them on the weekends. I want people around me that are like me. So if I can find people that have those 3 things, I am like so much farther ahead of everybody else. I don't have metrics, I don't have, you know, personality tests, I don't do all of that. I have some of my team that interviews people, so they have to go through like 4 rounds of interviews, and by the time they get to me, I'm like their best friend. Because they've made it, and I make them feel like they've made it. This is really hard, guys. You're part of this team because you deserve to be here. That's what we do.
So I'm not an arsehole, but I'm an accountant. Which means I'm introverted and socially awkward and generally look down at my own shoes. Often because they're pretty, but because also, you know, I don't like to make eye contact. So I'm not an arsehole, but I know initially in my business, I was the ice queen and I was the bitch and I was all that sort of stuff because I didn't realise that as founder, I drove culture in my business. So it took me probably 7 years, because I'm also a slow learner. It took me quite a while to figure that out, whereas now I get that I drive that, I get that I'm the business owner, and people are actually influenced by that, because I still think that's weird, that people are influenced by that. So now we hire based on values. So we do a very similar thing to you, and we make it hard for people to join us because we want the right people to join us. We don't want toxic people to come in and, I'm going to swear, no. Oh yeah.
Don't swear, don't say arsehole.
It's all yours to come in and fuck up my business. So I'm just going to lay it out.
Arseholes or anyone to fuck up business.
Legal disclaimer down before I said it, so that's kind of okay. So I don't want them to stuff up my business. So I now hire on values. And I'll actually describe people. So I hire other accountants that are a little bit like me. So with our receptionist, we described her as in a dog. We want a Labrador. We want an excitable puppy that will come and wee in the corner and be excited when clients come in. And that's who we've got. If you ring up ATA, you will have, oh, hi, how are you? And she's super excited and you're going to get lovely on emails. But that's what we needed. So it's been having the courage to hire people that aren't like you as well, because I do not want a team of people that are like me. It's just, nothing would get done. We'd all just be big vision, strategy. There'd be no detail people. It would just be horrible. In my other businesses, so in the Money Bar, I've co-founded with Lauren, who is very, very detail driven, because I knew I didn't have the time. And I needed someone that was very, very detail driven, that wanted to be doing the minutiae of stuff that I have no interest in. I want to be big vision, go get the clients, let's go here, and I needed her to create the forms and templates. And in Thinkers Inc, it was the same. It was, Rod is the education piece. He's super passionate about that. And I am super passionate about the legacy and strategy and finance and how to get there. So collectively, we're a beautiful team. And I have nothing to do with the staff in that business, surprisingly. So yeah, for me it's about understanding culture, but understanding me in culture, because we can't all do ads that are singing, because that would, I'd want to kill myself. But it's understanding who you are in that, and then making sure that you still have the right team for you that come into your business.
Oh, I don't really know how to follow that. In multiple choice, see all of the above. I am that person who changes everything probably every 3 hours, not every 6 hours. I'm totally ADD, and it's taken me a long time to realise that that is how I operate. And I'm actually great at the creative stuff and the visionary stuff, but if I'm writing, I can disappear into flow for hours on end, and you won't see me and you can't interrupt me, which is a real paradox. So in short, for me to find people that I can work with effectively, they need to be complementary, and I have to be really careful about not hiring people who are just like me, because we get on really well, isn't it fun? Although we're actually not like each other at all in this sense, are we? So we probably work together really well. So I think that's really important, is be really conscious of what your strengths are and hire people who complement your strengths, even if they drive you absolutely nuts, because that's how you make a really great team.
As they all said, all those things, but also I guess my business is a little bit different in that we outsource a lot of stuff, but we outsource to people who stay with us forever. So, and some of those people, well, the ones, so I guess there's two things I hire for. One is for the things I can't do, and there's a lot of things we can't do, the technical stuff, the graphic design, there's a whole lot of stuff, we're hopeless at. And I really believe in if you can't do it, find someone who can. And one of the learnings from the solo businesses that we have in our community is that people wants to save $1 and they want to try and do it themselves, but save the time instead. So I'm very much into the two things. One, things that I can't do, someone else does, and also the really boring, repetitive things that aren't the right use of my time or other people in our team's time. And the funny thing is that the people we've found have almost really found us. And the funniest story is, years ago now, I was looking for a graphic designer, and I went and put a thing on Elance, as it was, whatever it is now. And I just wanted someone to create some visuals for me. And I got all the normal sort of replies. And then there's this lady going, pick me, I've got your book. And I'd written a book called How to Bake a Business. And she put a picture of my book in there. And she said, you've got to pick me. And of course I had to pick her, because she knew exactly what I wanted to do. And what I found is that people, and I've worked with her ever since, and you know what, she's in New York, so it's not cheap. But she's sort of quite funny, because years ago I said I want to do something that's a bit like something Martha Stewart was doing. The next thing is she's gone and she's working for Martha Stewart, but she does my stuff, and she's not the easiest person to work with, but she just gets me. And I have found that people, the really, really key people have sort of found us, and that sounds a bit woo-woo, especially as I'm an accountant, and I also wouldn't be a woo-woo person, but it's absolutely that way. And then when you find them, you look after them, and in lots of different ways, and then they stay. And the same with and we have a big technology component, and the same with that as well, and other parts of it. So that's my little extra bit, but everything you girls said too.
There's some really key themes there. One, about knowing yourself. Partly your own strengths and weaknesses on a technical side, but also, so importantly, your values. This is your business. You're putting so much on the line. You want those, the more those values shine, often the more you'll find the right people. Usually it's different strengths but similar values that seems to work. Well, enough on the emotional, touchy-feely side. We're here to talk tech as well. Women in tech. What have been some of your IT challenges, and what have been some of your great successes? Now, in terms of both challenges and successes, I'm thinking about things like generating leads online, internal business management systems that save so much time or increase quality, and also the ability to provide your services online, reach a much larger audience. I know particularly, Julia, for you reach a huge audience for a low cost because of your tech offer.
Yes, so to be honest, when I started my business, I didn't realise I was getting into a technology business. It was never meant to be that way. But obviously, when I sort of mentioned about how we wanted to do something for a lot of people, who can't afford much, it was going to have to be technologically enabled. And over time, you know, we've grown to a pretty large community. I mean, we touch well over 100,000 solo businesses, and so each one of them we have to touch. And they all find us online. It's a completely online business. We have a huge following in the UK, and not because I've lived here for 21 years, so that's just one of those random things that when things take off, they take off where they take off. And I do a lot of writing, and I probably do write with a bit of a quirky, well, I deliberately write with a bit of a quirky English expression. But, so we've had a lot of, so we use technology in a very heavy way. And I think there's a few things, some things that have really surprised me. For instance, and this is a story that I was telling someone earlier, is that a lot of micro businesses, a lot of solo businesses start off and they use like a Hotmail account as their email. And when we get people to sign up, they sign up for a free program first of all. They obviously just put their email address in Hotmail, in MailChimp, and Hotmail has decided not to like us anymore. They won't tell us why, nobody can do anything about it, but all of a sudden, you know, we lost half the people. And people would say, I keep trying to sign up for you, but I never get the, you know, the confirmation thing you got on an email, they just never get that bit. They don't ever get a chance to reconfirm. And things like that. What I've discovered really about technology is that these things come up. They will always come up. If it's not that, it's something else. You know, we have quite a complex back-end, different systems talking to each other, and you know, the developer, you know, somewhere changes, you know, one little bit over here, and then the whole thing doesn't talk to each other anymore. And that's why I have, you know, really good tech people. But it's really frustrating because as a business owner, you feel like, hey, look, I've paid all for this. I don't want them to do these little twiddles. It's working for me. And there's always things. And I guess what I've learned is that there are always things, and we just have to be prepared for those things. Suck it up and spend the money if I need to, because I, you know, sometimes feel a bit frustrated about that, and a bit irritated. But that it's worth it, you know, it's worth it. And then in terms of things like, I mean, that's how we find all our people online. I mean, people find us through word of mouth, but there is nothing that we do in any other way than online. We're a huge user of Facebook ads, and because the funniest thing about solo businesses is that I could solve their problems in 10 seconds by telling them to get off Facebook, and that would free up all the time that they, you know, because they get because people are working at home on their own, you know, enjoy Facebook, and it's a big community, but they get they have to join in every single conversation, and they get very distracted and overwhelmed. But you know, that's worked very well for us, and we have a system for doing it all. But everything is underpinned by specialists. Like, I know how I want it all to be, but go and find the right. In fact, was Sue Ellen here tonight? She's not, is she? No. So Sue Ellen, who, you know, is the mastermind of most of the stuff, is going to come tonight, and she has helped me find all the right people for things. So what I've discovered was that I needed to know what I wanted doing, and I am somebody who's a little bit of a nerd, and I do like to know how things work, and I do like to experiment, and I think that's useful because you need to know a little bit to know what to ask. But then I get to a point, and then I just think, you know what, this is no longer interesting for me, and I trust someone to go and do that. And that's sort of worked really well. But Sue always laughs, I'll probably go a little bit further with my having to investigate stuff than I think the average person would. And then I put my hand up and say, God, this is always looking. She always says, oh, do you want to do that yourself? After I said, you know what, I've been looking at this thing. She'd never get involved in code, but I've been looking at this thing. No, don't touch that. So anyway, I'm not going to tell you lots about the technology side, because it's actually probably what takes up about 30% of my time. There is always something, but that's because it's
particularly interesting that even after 8 years, it's so much of your time.
Well, because it always changes. Because I think the other thing with technology and the ways that you can do things, there's always a new way of doing things, and there's a better way, and there's a faster way, and so you sort of want to keep up with that. Well, I want to keep up with it, and I want to make sure we're doing things in the best way. And I actually do find that interesting. I'm a little bit nerdy like that, actually. So I want it all to be thinking, what should we be doing next? And you never run out, do you? You never run out of things to. There are always more opportunities and things you can do than you've got time to do them in. Okay, who's next?
Sue Ellen Hughes from the Kickstart Biz also does all my back-end stuff, so I can give Sue Ellen a shout out. I'm a little like you in that I could tweak around in the back end forever, but it's a bit like Google, you know, once you're in there you disappear down so many rabbit holes and suddenly you've lost an hour. And so I try and outsource as much of that stuff as possible, the whole campaign management, website management, all of that stuff. I just say, no, I think I want it to look like this, and then my designer will boil it down, and then Sue Ellen will execute it and instruct it. I'm actually kind of going a little bit the other way though, which is again a bit paradoxical at a Women in Tech evening, is that I'm actually trying to come offline more. Because I think, coming back to the theme of connectivity, if you want to grow your business, you need to be out there hustling, not sitting in front of a computer. Unless you're a tech person, and that's why you founded your business, and you've got somebody out there hustling for you, you need to hustle, baby, hustle. Because when you come to raising capital, when you come to selling widgets, you need to be out there hustling, because people will work with people, not somebody who has an online persona. So I'm kind of heading back down that direction now, and it's actually working for me. Business?
I'm unexpectedly in tech. So as an accountant, that's not something that I expected to be involved in, but we were an early adopter of Xero, which is a cloud solutions. And as soon as we discovered that, we're like, oh God, what else could we do? Because as an accountant, I'm all about efficiencies and cost savings. So what I've realised is if I can take all these things and add-ons and operate out of the cloud, then suddenly I can operate anywhere. So my business is in 3 different locations. So my accounting firm's in the Blue Mountains and in Sydney, and we're just about to open a 3rd site. The preschool is going to be multiple sites. I need to be able to operate in the cloud. I can't have everything on a server. And I think my frustration with tech is that I just don't understand it. So I hire great people, which comes back to the people side of it. I don't understand code. I'm a child of the 70s. I grew up, I remember doing a TAFE class learning MyOb and them saying, you need to back up now. I'm like, what's that? Like I just didn't grow up with that. So I've had to really learn fast. And it's the same thing, thankfully I'm fascinated by it. So therefore I've created something called the Numbers Lounge, which is an online world where you can go and learn about business and numbers. But it's something where I'm continually leaning into, because I think if you ignore that side, it's too peril. And I completely agree. I think that we need to be offline. We need to have that face-to-face interaction, and we need to have community, but we also need to be online and embracing efficiencies and embracing how can we do this cheaper and faster and simpler.
So there are a couple tips that I have for increasing efficiency in terms of tools. I'm one of those people that tries to keep tools to a minimum, because all of my friends are techie nerds, so they're going, have you seen this new tool? And I'm going, I have maximum 5 tools in my life. So, and so if I take on another one, I push another one out, max 5 tools. So these are the 5 tools I use. Trello, it's TRELLO.com. So it is a project management system. So we run all of the projects that we have in the business. Has anyone used it? Okay, so awesome. So a lot of you have. So that we find that really helpful. We run our business off that in terms of the team that we have, because I have like pretty much everyone I have on my team except for myself and my soon-to-be operations manager starting on Monday, yay, will be part-time. So Slack, S-L-A-C-K, have you guys used Slack before? Okay, so Slack requires that your whole team kind of buys into it, but really what it is, it's a communication tool that helps you cut down on emails. So, you know, like you get a million emails and it's all back and forth, but what it does is, I don't know, you have to go on it and see, you can check it out for yourself. But essentially all it does is cut down on communication time. And then I use Gmail and my Gmail calendar and like maybe one other one that I can't remember. So maybe I use 4. Okay, which is good. So that's kind of how we manage efficiencies. In terms of IT, again, coming back to the fact that I have no business experience whatsoever, I've also had to learn to be a product manager, which has been really interesting. The benefit that I've had is that I find good people, and I decided to build my business from scratch. I think the website. I think the toughest part about tech is to figure out where to start. You know, like do you have a Shopify cart? Do you go down that route with templates and theme forest, or do you decide that you're going to build it yourself? And if you are going to build it yourself, how are you going to do that? So, and a lot of times it kind of goes back to like how you know yourself. Like when I started, I thought I knew myself pretty well. And every day I wake up and I'm like, I don't know anything. You know, like it really is a journey, and like I'm really confident in a lot of things now, and in some ways I'm not at all. But the point that I'm making is, you know, you're gonna get a lot of advice and you're not gonna know if it's right until afterwards. So I decided I wanted a CTO so that I could build a scalable tech business. A year later, after, you know, bringing someone on, and we were accepted into an accelerator program. So we are an alumni of NeuroD, which is an accelerator program that's backed by Telstra. We were part of their second cohort. In the middle of that program, my CTO, who I sang for, quit. She's the best Ruby developer in Australia. And she said, you know what, I'm tired. It's exhausting. And she goes, I'm not making any money and I could go make 200K. So I'm out. And I went, I wish I had done a Shopify cart. You know, I wish I had done a WordPress site. Like, now what am I gonna do? So I've had to spend all this time and all this money, but, you know, managed to find awesome developers. And now we are just finishing a website build where I will be able to accept catering orders all over Australia in a custom built backend. But, which I'm now glad I have, but like a year ago I wasn't glad, and like a year before that I was positive that's what I wanted. So, I don't know, it kind of goes on your journey. And the last thing that I wanted to say, for those of you who has a website that you're using or building, so like, you know, half of you, okay. So what has worked for us, which may not work for you, but it works for us because I've been doing this 2 years and now I know, is that I need a website that is so easy to use. Ordering catering is not easy. Have you ever ordered catering before? Think about when you went over there to eat food. You're like, oh, I don't really like sweet chili, but like I like sweet chili, but I like the other kind of sweet chili, and I really wish that they had this. Think about that magnified millions of times. Like, that is what I'm dealing with, plus the people that sometimes order the food aren't there. It's a lot of complexity. So I need to make it simple, which doesn't mean easy. It means simple, it needs to be fun, and it needs to be consistent. So how am I going to get that in a website with developers? So I have figured out that the way that I do that is that design is in charge of product. Any decision that gets made by the designers, not the developers. Designers in my business are the product managers, and they have the final say, because I like pretty things, and it's my world. And I'm building it. So that is the insight. It might not work for you guys, but it works for us. So design owns our product.
Very useful insights in your tech journey. Thank you very much. Do we have anyone in the room who is the CTO or the tech developer in their business? Wow. Okay. Do we have people in relationships with CTOs or have good working relationships with developers? Excellent, excellent. My next question is about legal. So I'm now intrigued to see if people have better relationships with tech or with legal. How many people have a good relationship with a lawyer? Thank God our clients put their hand up. Thank you very much. We've heard and can see the difficulties around tech, accessibility, operations, and we know that people find lawyers as inaccessible and terrifying as tech, possibly. That's one of the reasons we invited everyone here tonight, to make laws seem more accessible. What are some of the legal issues you've faced and some of the solutions you've come up with? And I thought potentially, Mel, given you have 3 businesses, you might particularly have something to add. And if no one wants to talk about lawyers on the panel, that's also fine. We'll go with if you can't say anything nice.
So I guess I come from that glass half full, look at the problem situation where I see that you need to have that contract or that solution before. Because I've worked with hundreds of business owners as an accountant, so I see the problems all the time from friends that go into business together and, oh, this is going to be awesome. And I'm saying to them, please go and get unit holder agreements or shareholder agreements or whatever you need before things start to fracture. So that I take my own advice, that's immediately what I did. My husband, so my gay husband, and then Lauren, who's my senior accountant, the first thing we did was I trust this man more than anyone else alive, and yet I have a unit holder agreement with him because I value that relationship so much that I want to make sure we have in writing what's going to happen if someone wants to leave, what happens if we have a disagreement, when we can start to pay wages, when we get pay rises, all that sort of stuff is set in stone. So predict the problems before they arrive. And that's where I see that legal has an amazing place in business. It's predicting the problems before they arise and doing something about them so that you don't have to go and pay legal for the problems when they erupt. So I see it as a precaution rather than a solution, even though I know that it has both. So in my business, obviously, we have everything from contracts to mortgages to unit holder and shareholder agreements to, gosh, everything, engagement letters to, I mean, every part of our business I feel has got a contract.
Well, it's true, most relationships have a contract behind them, yes.
Yeah, but it's, I think if I see something with my clients that I work with, the biggest thing that I see are friends going into business, this is going to be awesome, but they don't have that behind them, and then the friendship suffers because they didn't have that agreement, or someone passes away, which is horrible. So the other thing that Rod and I went and did immediately was go and get life insurance of one another and put a contract around that as well, because then if something happens, I can look his family in the eye and say, here you go, I can now own this business, and I can look you in the eye because I'm paying you out for it. They're happy, I'm happy, and the whole relationship is protected. So yeah, I see legal as such a valuable tool and resource in business, but as a precaution more than a problem solver, even though you are both.
One of the nice things too is that once you've got whatever that contract is in place, you don't have to look at it again. As much as I love accountants, it comes around every quarter. There's that VAS, or there's that annual return. It is, it's great. Only people needed lawyers every quarter.
Acquisition costs. Government.
But also, as you were saying, friends going into business together, we see all the time, and it can be fantastic, but someone needs to lead you through those really hard discussions, and it's so much easier if it's a third party rather than the two of you. Yes, yes. Anyone else have any particular insights, comments on legal?
Well, I don't really have anything nice to say.
No. So we'll move on to
but the only thing that I would, because I've had really horrifically bad experiences with lawyers, I have to say, and giving really bad advice, but I got what I paid for. That's all I'm going to say. So it's an investment you should make. You know, like, do your research. I'm sure Legal Vision's awesome. But honestly, like, you know, the opportunity cost versus, like, it's an investment you want to make. The only thing that I would say, too, is that having a third party just helps those conversations in life, in general, easier. You know, like, people will ask me something, and I'll say, oh, I don't know if I can do that. I'll take that back to the board. I don't have a board, you know? I just, like, make them think I do, because that third-partiness really helps. And so if you have someone who's educated in what it is that you need to do, because I didn't know what a shareholders agreement was until I needed one, it is worth the time and investment before you start to get yourself protected. That's all I'm going to say.
Thank you very much, that's much appreciated.
All I will say about this is that legal is one of those things that, because it's not income producing, often goes right to the bottom of the pile. There are so many other ways that you need to deploy you think you need to deploy your finite resources, but legal is a really important part of that. So, you know, freelance writing is one of the things that I also do, and we're talking about how to structure a payment agreement. So for each piece of freelance writing I do, to make sure I get paid. So, you know, little things like that are important. Things like your website terms and conditions, your privacy policy. And I think what's held a lot of people back in the past is that it was always such an unknown quantity of how much is that actually going to cost. And the thing I love about the way that Legal Vision disrupted this whole legal business model is that everything is so predictable. You know how much it's going to cost. You can get a lot of free resources online. You can upgrade to the premium model if you want to make it more customized. And you know, I really am really excited about the business model, and I'm not actually here to spruik legal vision, but I really genuinely do like the way that you do things. I think it's a great, great service for growing businesses. So hooray to you guys.
Echo that, because that's absolutely, you know, it is fantastic.
This
I think
is unscripted.
No. I just Ursula with my life, and I recommend it to everybody, which I do. But what I was going to say was really it's not so much about my business, but about the solo businesses we come across. So one of the things that we do is we run a very active secret Facebook group with people who do 100-day goals, and because they all trust each other a lot, they will tell everybody everything that's going on in their business. And so I know how many times people write in there about the people who have done wrong by them, the customers that didn't pay and they didn't have agreements. We have a lot of artists or arty type people whose designs have been ripped off, and or people who have done something like actually as simple as someone the other day had something. She was running some sort of water class, as in sort of like water yoga type classes in a swimming pool, and the swimming pool actually just said that they needed the times and they couldn't give her alternate times, and she hadn't got a good contract with them, and she then had to repay everybody who signed up to her class. And you know what, this was she just got enough people to make it viable. I mean, little things, and there's not a day goes past, well, there's probably not an hour that goes past without someone saying this has happened. So it's never, ever, ever too early. Doesn't matter how small and tiny the business is, these things, they hurt because they come up, and they'll come up pretty soon.
And those foundation steps, like setting up a company, protecting intellectual property, including registering trademarks, and also the key agreement with your clients. It's really fulfilling to set those things up because we know how long they're going to last people and how much protection they're going to give. So it's very interesting to hear your perspective too. Thank you. So I'm going to go from tech to legal to money. But after this is the last question, then wine and food. So bear with us in terms of all the important things that we're covering. Does anyone have investors in their business? I know some people do. And is anyone thinking about it in the next, anything from a year to a few years? Excellent. We're particularly passionate about helping people grow their business and helping increase access to capital, so that's great to see. I'm interested, does your business have investors? And what tips do you have for women who are considering getting investment, including who the heck do they speak to and what the heck do they say? One of Sarah's businesses was entirely founded to assist women with these growth steps. I'm particularly interested in hearing from you, Sarah.
Well, Heads Over Heels is actually a social enterprise, and originally it was founded to create that connectivity to start those discussions, but they're since getting, I've stepped off the executive committee some years ago, but they're since getting more involved with capital raising now, and there are quite a few angel and VC people involved with Heads Over Heels who can help. And if anybody wants an introduction to Heads Over Heels, please talk to me, because I'm happy to help with that. There are plenty of other organisations out there that are really supportive and pro-women capital raising. So Springboard is one. How many people have heard of Springboard? There's, what's the one in Melbourne called? Scale. Laura McKenzie at Scale Investors in Melbourne. There's a whole gamut of different groups, forming circles, yeah. And there's a wonderful chart that's in circulation that Ursula probably has, which talks about the capital raising process and how you go from self-funded, friends and family, and then angel investors, venture capital, private equity, and then typically IPO. You can enter at any exit and enter at any of those points along the continuum. The most important point, I think, comes back yet again to connectivity and hustle, baby, hustle. You need to be out there talking to people who have the connections. This is not about women going to women for money. This is about, it doesn't matter whether you're a man or a woman, yeah, there are fewer women capital raising, but whether you've got boobs or whether you've got bits, you need to be out there talking to the people who've got the money. Where do you find them? That's the question. If you don't have connections to people who have the money, or connections to people who know the people who have the money, then you need to find them. You need to get out from behind your desk and go find them. Talk to Ursula, talk to me, talk to Mel and Julia. You know, we've all got connections that we can help you, and it's degrees of separation. So try not to. My advice to you would be try not to think of yourself as a woman trying to raise capital. Although there are some advantages, gender positive advantages to that right now. You are a business owner raising capital, and you are putting together a business proposition that has to have a valid return on equity for the investor, just like anybody else. And what I've seen women do again and again and again is focus on the value proposition and the big vision and all of that stuff. They're not interested in that. If you're going to write a check for somebody for 200 grand, 500 grand, $1 million or more, you want to know how much of that you're going to get back and when and what the chances of that are. So if you're going to put together a shareholder pitch, you need to be really focused on what the outcome is. If you're not ready to have that conversation, then you're not ready to raise capital yet.
Yeah, completely agree. And I think just to add to that, I hear too many women, and I think passion's great, and I think that's one of the things we bring to businesses is passion. But we also need to be passionate about business. We need to understand the numbers. We need to be able to, I mean, if I talk to someone about investment, if you can't talk to me about the numbers, I'm not interested. Because if you don't know your business, why on earth would I invest? So you need to know your numbers. But I think when it comes to investment and business, it's certainly something that I've sourced both from external funds and for banks. And I think women, there's a reluctance to risk the house. Men seem to, in my experience with the businesses that I deal with in my accounting firm, men seem to be far more willing to go and ask for money, whereas women, it's it's just this business, or I'm just running that. So therefore, they don't have that same impetus to go and grow and to find that money. I think that's changing, but I think we definitely need to be better at asking for money. Whether that's licensing, whether that's franchising, whether that's loans, whether that's angel investing or VC, it's understanding where can I get the money from and what sort of model do I want. And I know I was speaking to a client this morning and she just went straight to, so I want an investor. Really? Why? Oh, because I want this much money because I want to grow my tech company and I'm going to give them 10%. Really? You know, when you sell, they're going to get X amount, and when you pay dividends over the next however many years, they're probably going to get a share of that too. Money's cheap at the moment. How about you don't want a lot of money, you only want 150k, you own a house, how about we go try and find finance? So there's more than one way to skin a cat, and it's understanding as women that we can ask for it, and that there are different ways of being able to fund your business.
So I've raised a little bit of money through the accelerator program, and then I raised a little bit more, not very much. But I haven't really raised any more. And coming out of the Mirror D program, that was almost expected. I mean, I stood on stage and talked about the money that I wanted, but like, I don't think I was like professionally prepared to actually, it comes back to like women feel bad. Like I actually did, I was like, I don't know if I am like emotionally capable of taking on $500,000 of someone else's money right now. I really wasn't. And that was about a year ago. So I'm just now confident enough, because I've never doubted me. But what I do is hard. And I wanted to stand in front of an investor and say, I am not going to let you down. I'm going to get you a return through this mechanism. And I couldn't do that a year ago, and I'm not full of shit, like I actually really care, and I don't want to, I care about what I do, and I want to be honest about it. What I would say to anybody here, though, because I'm kind of in a different track, because I'm like on struggle street, kind of, like bootstrap startup, is that you need to find investors the same way you find your team. They have to buy into your values. I was really close to closing a really big deal last week with my first investor. He was going to be my lead investor. And he made a comment, and I said, I'm out. I don't want you in my business, because I'm working my ass off. And like everyone talks about raising money, you give your company away. This is like not, this is like, you are giving away a piece of your business to these people. Like, people talk about capital raising. So, well, you actually have to give away quite a lot. So if I'm gonna give away part of my business to somebody, I want to like them. I want them to have the same values that I have. And that one comment that that potential investor made was enough for me to say, I don't need your money that bad. You know, you're lucky you're investing in me. That's the kind of attitude you kind of want to have, because if you don't back yourself, and I'm not talking about cocky, you know, I'm not talking about arrogance, because it's a very different conversation. The way that I've done it is that, and it depends on the investor. It's so interesting listening to the conversation, because some of them will say, you need to understand your numbers better. So then I'll spend a week memorizing numbers, and then I'll go in and like say, I need to hear the vision. You know, like, sell me the vision. So it really just comes down to like who it is that you're talking to, and what their values are. But what I do now is I have spent a lot of time figuring out what it is that I'm raising money for, why I need it, what I think my business is valued at a reasonable rate, and I'm not deviating from that script. This is what I know. So I will go to an investor and they'll say, well, what about this? And I'll say, this is what I know. So if you're in, then you are in. And if you aren't, I need to go elsewhere, because I don't have any time. Capital raising is a full-time job, which I don't have time to do. Literally, I would rather grow my business by talking to all of you and feeding your offices and figuring out what's gonna work with my business and grow slower than take on a whole bunch of money, because that also brings on a whole lot of other responsibilities that you then need to do. So it really is up to you. Like, you really want to be ready and confident, because now I've always kind of known that I needed to do that. But like, it really is up to you. Like, what is in this document? This is what I know. So if you are in this, then you are the guy or girl for me.
We speak to a lot of investors in business as well, and they're from seed capital investors who are just wealthy people who put money in business all the way through to venture capital businesses. And there is a few key themes we hear. One is you need to be raising money for a specific purpose, specific growth. No one wants to hear that you're raising money to pay payroll. Spoken to a guy who runs a venture capital company. He said, I got a call on Friday for a guy who couldn't make payroll on Monday. That doesn't work. They want to hear how the money that they invest is going to help you grow, achieve higher return, larger business value, higher return for them. And also that key point about the relationship. They're not expecting everything to go right, but they need to know you and trust you. So the earlier you get the relationship going, the more you have their trust and their backing in the times that things are difficult.
Okay, so what I was going to say quickly, very similar things. So I've done a lot of, so when I was at Deloitte, I worked in capital raising, so I've done a lot of that for fast-growing technology companies, and I have seen the downsides, you know, of fantastic businesses and fantastic people in with the wrong investors. And people, I mean, there's two people who became very good friends of mine, guys who started brilliant businesses who had to end up walking away from their businesses with zero, because of multiple rounds of capital raising, and then being removed from being CEO, removed from being the board, and then sometimes evil things which happen, and they end up with nothing. And in fact, one of those guys is on the brink of actually making a fortune in a new business, and I'm so happy because I saw him when he had been completely sort of crucified about 10 years ago. So there's that aspect. And the other thing is that a lot of people, so not on big capital raisings, but on much smaller amounts, very small businesses, especially actually female-run ones, but men a bit as well, but whinge that they can't raise very small amounts of money from banks or from friends and everything. And often it's because they're using that money to try to fix a business model that doesn't work. And I think actually it's very dangerous to borrow small amounts of money, because often it's businesses that haven't got a way of marketing. They actually don't know how they're going to bring customers in. They don't know how they're actually going to properly have a system that takes up from here to, you know, how we're going to get our customers and how we're going to turn it into dollars. And they're actually using that money to prop up the business. And although it's not a very popular thing to say, I understand why the banks do it, I absolutely do. And I think it would be very dangerous if the government gave out too many grants, if banks gave out too much money, that money would just disappear, because it's, unfortunately, the majority of people who ask for it are asking for it for businesses for which you know, nobody wants the product, they can't market it or whatever. So they're just two little extra things.
Excellent wisdom, thank you. We're about to go to audience questions, but one more that we're particularly interested in. What's helped you maintain your sanity and your drive? In fact, both Sarah and Mel write very insightful blogs about the behind the scenes of being a business owner. So do you have any particular tips to share with us?
We're laughing because we've talked about this a bit this week. I'll be completely honest. It's a shit fight of a ride. There are some days where you feel really good about yourself, and some days where you just think, I can't do this. Why am I doing this? Why did I give up my well-paid job? Why don't I just go and get another job? How am I going to pay this kids' school fees? How am I going to sustain the house? And everything can just turn to custard in a day. And you go and have a good night's sleep, and you wake up the next morning and everything looks different because sure as eggs is eggs. The sun comes up the next day, and there's a couple of beautiful mixed metaphors. You know, I think you have to recognise your limitations as a person. I'm quite open about the fact that I've suffered from a lot of anxiety and depression issues over the years, and it's taken me a long time to come to terms with that and manage them. And then it's like when you realise that that's what it is, oh, that's why I feel like that. The sun comes out, so you can get some help for it. And there are a lot of depression issues with people with small businesses or growing businesses or startup businesses. That is just a reality, I'm afraid. So how to stay sane, recognise your limitations, get enough sleep. Sleep is really important. There is no bloody point staying up until 3 o'clock in the morning because that's going to make your business more successful. It's not. It's just going to burn you out and make you tired and cranky and unable to think clearly. So just don't do that, okay? If you can't get your business done in the 12 hours of the day, then, you know, frankly, there's a problem. What else? You know, the classic things, exercise, drink lots of water. I've written a little ebook that's on my blog that's 12 tips for taming the black dog. All of those equally apply to 12 tips for staying sane while you're running a business. And they've all been curated from conversations I've had with people who've been way down in the black hole and come out the other side and have learned how to deal with it. So that might be a helpful resource for you. I could keep talking all night about this, but have you got some extra insights to add? Fox breathing?
Fox breathing. So I would normally just say, fine, yeah, that's good. No, I do beautifully with it. And on Sunday I decided to write myself, like just to get it out on paper, how I was feeling. Because in the last year I've opened a preschool, I've started a financial planning business, and Foles started it because we left a big blue financial planning licensee who I won't name, AMP, and moved to someone else. It's a legal firm. If I say a disclaimer first, I'll be fine.
Mute the mic.
Exactly. Fair to Whistler. But I started that, and I launched a book last year, Fab But Broke, and I was working 6.5 days and stupid hours and no holidays for 18 months, and I had whooping cough for 3 months. And I got to the end of the year, and I just, for 3 weeks, I didn't leave my front door. And I just went, what the frig is going on? How didn't swear then. What on earth is going on? And I think I realised it was that brittle, teeth-gritted resistance to, I'm going to make this happen if it kills me, damn it, because I am going to be successful, because I want this, and I can do it, that whole mantra. And I didn't believe it, and I think I just needed to put down on paper how I was feeling, because I've been working with a beautiful coach for 7 months. And putting in place great tactics in order to have great well-being as an entrepreneur, instead of that brittle, teeth-gritted resilience that I don't want. And so I have so many tactics now that I use, from box breathing to this year I've made sure that if I have time off, even if it's half a day a week, I turn off my phone and I am mindful, and I'm with my husband, and we spend a couple of nights apart, and it's actually nice to reconnect in with him. And I've just had a week off, and I've just booked in my next week in July, and from July I'll book in my next one, because I think you have to as an entrepreneur, because otherwise you blink and suddenly you're at Christmas and you're stressed again. And I think it's just, personally, it's admitting that you're not perfect, which is really sad because I kind of think I am. But it's admitting that you're not, and being okay with that, and being okay with telling other people that, because I'd rather you not know that I wasn't perfect. I'd rather you believe I was a super successful entrepreneur on a panel with 3 businesses and 2 books and blah blah blah. But the reality is that it's tough, and particularly if you throw yourself into multiple businesses, it's freaking tough. So I think it's being honest about that, and it's having your tribe, and I probably have 5 people that I will tell everything to. But that's been a process too, because I think as you become successful and as you do more things, that tribe gets smaller, and that's okay too. And you just need to find those handful of people that won't judge you and that are just okay with you falling apart or never being there. And they'll hold you in that.
So everything that you said, but I've got 2 really very, very practical things which always work. The first one is I encourage everybody, so all the micro businesses, but it's not just for micro business, for anybody, is to keep a journal, a daily journal about your business. Because if you write down every day things that have gone well or things that have been a disaster, you just jot it down. It's only for you, but there's nothing better than that day when you're having a really crappy day, to go back and sit and look through the journal and see how far you've come. It is the simplest thing to do, but getting it out of your head onto paper is a very therapeutic and very, it helps you articulate things that are going on, which sometimes your subconscious is telling you, but you're not sort of hearing it. But also it helps when you reflect back and think, actually, you know what, I've done a hell of a lot in the last year. It's not actually been the same stuff every day. And the second thing people do is a little bit like that, but it's, and I do this, is to keep a smile file. So I have, every time anybody ever says anything nice about the business bakery, it goes in a smile file. I have one in my email, I have one in Google Keep, I've got one in Evernote, I don't use Evernote anymore, Google Keep now, and I have a paper one I scan things in now, but in the old days, when I didn't do that, I kept a paper one. And there is nothing better in the world if you are waking up thinking, oh God, why am I doing this? It's hard work, nothing's going right, all these little disasters. To get that out, with a cup of tea, a coffee, or a champagne, or whatever, and sit and read through all the nice things people have said, because within 10 minutes you're going like, I can't let them down, I've got to get back into it. And that is the absolute best way of picking yourself up.
Can I just add one thing to that? As all members of the enterprise, growing business tribe, let's all take the time to say nice things to each other about how successful we're each being, and let's give each other a bit of a leg up every now and again. Put that stuff in the smile file. Doesn't that sound cheesy?
It is very cheesy, it's not bad. I'll put it with a smile, but
we all lift each other up, and we can do that easily. It doesn't cost anything too much, and it means a lot.
So I'll just add one quick thing, because you guys are so much better than me. I actually lie awake at night being like, I should do a smile file, but I don't. I just, it's like on my list every day. Someone asked me the other day, what's a day in the life? And I said, okay, well, I wake up and then feel guilty that I've woken up late. Like, that's just, I don't know. It's so bloody hard to be balanced, and it doesn't exist. So the only thing that I do every day is I appreciate someone. That's the only thing I do every day. And I've only started doing it in January. It was my, resolution or whatever. And I just go through my phone, or I go through my Facebook friends, and I just pick one person. I always call them. I never write a message, and I never tell them what I'm gonna do. I just say, I really need to talk to you. And then what I do is I specifically tell them why I appreciate them. I just don't say I appreciate you. I say, remember 10 years ago when we were in junior high, and I didn't have lunch money and you gave me lunch money, or remember when you introduced me to that band when we were in high school? I really appreciate that, because it's so random and it's so far-fetched. I do a lot of walking and a lot of forgetting that I have shoes in my bag when I come to a fancy event, so I have sneakers on. I do that a lot. But when I'm walking to meetings, that's when I just go through my phone and I just call people and just say something nice. So that's the way that I balance, because at least I feel good about it's pretty selfish actually, because it just makes me feel good. But the only one other thing I would say is that there are always going to be times in your business, I call them seasons, where you're gonna have to work your fucking working, sorry, your ass off. You are. You will have to put in, if you have 3 businesses, you have to work all the time. Like, there is no, maybe you don't, I don't know, maybe you're way smarter than me, but you probably are. But like, if you have 3 businesses, you cannot get around working 6.5 days a week. So you have to work really, really hard for probably 4 months, 5 months before you systematize and automate and do all of those things, because then you can chill out for 3 weeks, you know, or whatever it might be. You know, but you know, truly, so it depends on what you want to do. Do you want to have 3 businesses? Because you will work all the time. If you want to have 1 business, like I work all the time and I have 1 business. I don't even have kids. I have friends that have like 3 startups and 4 kids. I'm like, how do you do that? So it depends on what you want to do. But it's okay to be crazy. Because if you kind of have to be a little bit if you want to start a business where you don't get paid and like work all the time.
Really appreciate your insights and some things I hear people talking about that work for them. It's something regular, whether it's ideally both, you know, something daily, something quarterly, something annually. Just booking them in, because there will never be time. So you just have to make that time. Yeah. And if you won't do it for yourself, do it for your purpose, do it for the people that you've hired, do it for your clients. Yeah. We would love to hear your questions for our panelists. Does anyone have a question?
I probably don't need the mic.
Share it. It's loud to hear me.
Please.
Otherwise, I've
walked all this way.
Oh, come on. I might break into song. So I've got a bit of cold though, got a bit of Barry White thing going on. So it's more of a comment than, more of a sort of addition, if I may. It's my discovery of Brené Brown. Oh my God. Well, Mel and I were both at the thing in the theatre, and she was awesome. And it's all about, for me, learning about vulnerability and actually opening. Like, I went through a shitstorm last year as well, and actually, yeah, let's, I don't know, boot bump later. It was, but for me, acknowledging that it's okay to be vulnerable and actually to communicate, because I had that a bit like Mel, that sort of barrier. And for me, everyone on the outside would never ever guess that I'm not okay. And for me to actually let the guard down and, you know, to sort of acknowledge, and I've got fucking a library of her books and, you know, a shrine and all that kind of stuff. So it's all about, you know, the vulnerability and acknowledge, and it's a daily thing. So when it comes to daily, you know, rituals, it's about, you know, just being more open and appreciative of, or acknowledging what it is, you know, that I'm going through, and recognizing it, but also acting on it, because otherwise you just go into that spiral, and literally from one day to the next, or from 1 week to the next, like all of a sudden 6 months can pass, which is basically what happened to me last year. So anyway, there we go.
And that's why we're particularly so grateful for the 4 of you speaking about personal experience, because how do you hear about the struggles people have gone through? It's not what people are talking about in interviews, it's not what they're putting on the front page of their website. So we enormously appreciate hearing what's happening for you. Yeah. Does anyone else have a question?
Hi, my name is Laura, I'm from Upload Ones. I have a question in relation to answering questions, you know, like Mirror D and all those other either grants or applications. They ask you a whole series of financial questions. If I could answer all of those questions to that nth degree, I wouldn't be asking for help. So to what extent do you need to understand the numbers and to be able to communicate the numbers and all the other pieces of information? And to what extent then do you say, well, actually, I know this much, but I don't know this much, and therefore I need help?
To make you run. I think it depends on the grant, I think it depends on the investor, I think it depends what you're going for. So if you are a genuine startup, you aren't going to, and they're asking you revenue questions, you're going to go, what revenue? So I think some of those applications are, they're going to put everything in there because they want to tick every single box. So I think as long as you can speak with honesty and integrity to, this is what I know that's going on in their business, and be able to answer the questions to do with the numbers without needing to be the CFO of your business, but certainly top level numbers. You know, what's your customer acquisition cost? How much does it cost you to open your doors each month? What's your growth plans? What's your exit strategy? Even if you had that top line answers to your business, you don't need to know how much the stationery costs. You don't need, do you know what I mean? You don't need to go to the minutiae of it, but you at least need, I think it depends on the avenue of finance you're going for. A bank's going to want to see a business plan with cash flow projections and financials. An investor might be more interested in the exit strategy and your customer acquisition cost. So I think it depends on your audience. And I think it's understanding the audience and being able to have the answer for that audience. I hope that helps.
Add something to that. So often in application forms and stuff, you know, they just want to weed out the tire kickers, and so the people who look at it all and think, oh God, there's all that information, too hard, I'm not going to do it, and they don't want applications from those people. So it doesn't have to be that you've done 100% of it to the absolute fantastic degree. And in fact, if you actually say why you can't complete certain things because you haven't done that, and you need to do some research or whatever the things are, that's fine. It's just that they don't want. So otherwise, every Tom, Dick, and Harry would apply for every grant and loan and everything, and it would cost a fortune to go through all that.
I'd also add to that, back to my point again about connectivity. Hustle, baby. If you want to get into Murray, go and find Mick Levinskas and go and talk to him and ask him that question.
I know him. I didn't get into Murray the first time. I applied the first time with no product and no tech person and like nothing. Just saying, I'm gonna do this. And I got really close to getting in, actually. I was like, I think they take 10 and I was like 11 or something the first time. And they said, you have to come back with something. And so I did. The point that I'm making is, back to Sarah's point around connectivity, like it is really all about who you know. I am literally the polar opposite of these three ladies. Like they are all financially literate accountants, and I'm a dietitian. Well, yeah, but you're, you know, private equity, and you've clearly raised money, like you've founded heads over heels, like, you know, you know more stuff than me, let's put it that way. Yeah, you know, but I can hustle more than anything. There's two things you need to do if you want to be successful. You have to hustle, what I call, you have to get noticed. That's what I call it, you have to get noticed, and you have to make the promises that you come true in front of people happen. So if you can communicate that, like the how is almost, it depends on the investor, you know what I mean? But like, you don't have to have all the answers. Even you just have to have, again, like top line kind of stuff. But I suck at all that. I go to them and I'm like, what does it take for me to get you to give me money? Because here's what I know, these things. And if you're honest about that, they know I'm not full of crap. I'm clearly not dumb. You know, just because I don't know these things because I've been, you know, like helping obese children for the last 15 years doesn't mean that I'm any less capable. You know, so it's like, what's the minimum that you kind of have to figure out and know? And then go to people and ask them. People are so generous, guys. Like, they're the nicest. 98% of the people who have made it are the most kind, nice, generous people. You know, you just have to get noticed. If you write to Mick, he will never respond to you. If you write him 10 emails and go to Murray D and stand outside the door before he gets there, you will probably get a coffee. You know? So there's like another layer of that.
Or get Liz to set it up.
I could totally do that. I could totally do that. You know, yeah, it's true. Totally.
Does anyone else have any questions for these incredible panel at all before we?
Yeah, who's Murray D?
You are.
Ah, do they give money to people?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Hi, ladies. I just like, sorry, I just like to say it's great having your hand listening to you. I've just started my own startup, and it's really refreshing to know that people go through the stuff that I'm going through, and it's not completely weird. But I'd like to ask you any tips on and how effective you found networking. So for me personally, I'm a personal person. I like talking to people and stuff, but it's that initial like introduction that freaks me out a little bit. So I came here and I'm thinking, oh, okay, so we're going to have a networking thing afterwards, but how am I going to approach people and start talking to them? So how effective do you find networking, and how did you start?
Can I take that one to start with? Networking gives me the shits. And that was one of the reasons that I co-founded Heads Over Heels, because networking has to have purpose. There is no point going around and having a nice little chat about somebody's shoes or their lovely kids or don't the walls look great. That's not what you're there for. But you have to be able to, it's that kind of funny hybrid of being able to make conversation and build trust with people very quickly without going, and by the way, my name's Sarah and this is my business and let's do business. But if you're in an environment where there's networking with purpose, then there is an expectation that that will be the conversation. So you're coming in on a trust point to start with, and that's, if I use Heads Over Heels as an example, there is an expectation that if you turn up at Heads Over Heels as a member, you are there to support the companies. That is your purpose. If you want to group your own goods as well, that's up to you, but you are there to support the companies. So when the companies come, they are there to meet people who can support them, and they can openly ask. They're asked to come to meetings with 3 asks. You have to have at least 3 asks, and you go around, you ask them of everybody. I hate those things where you turn up for lunch and you just have a nice little chat. You may or may not get something out of it. You don't have time to do that. You've got a business to start, you've got revenue to grow, you've got clients to find. You don't have time for all that. So network, yes, make connections, but I found it much more effective to actually have one-on-ones with very specific target people, like take Mick, for example, Mick Levinskas. If he is in a space where you want to be in, you spend your time going and have a coffee with Mick and ask Mick to introduce you to other people that he knows that can specifically help with the specific need that you have. Otherwise, you're going to waste a lot of time. That's my experience. Does anybody have a different view?
Kind of similar. So I think networking just for the sake of networking and coffees are 2 of the biggest time wasters. And I know I spent a lot of time networking when I started my business that was just a complete waste of time. So I think it's networking with a purpose, but it's finding your tribe, because some networks just aren't right for you. So it's going and finding those people that you click with, but also understanding why you're there. Because sometimes you'll be in a room where you're actually there to serve them, exactly what Sarah was saying, but sometimes you're in a room because you just want business. And that it's understanding the psyche of each one. So because I'm an introvert, I have rooms full of people and I go, oh, yay. So how I learn to do that now is I go and I find a couple of people and I talk to them. And I build deeper connections that way, rather than, and I don't think it works anyway, hi, how are you? Hi, like that. I don't think that works anyway. The other thing I've done is found things like Little Black Dress Group, where it is dinners, and I know Sarah has a kitchen table. Where it's the same deal. It's you sitting down for a few hours with women, really getting to know them and understand their business, and being willing to share your IP. And through the sharing and the giving away of your stuff, you network. So I think it's finding those sort of places. You can also do it online. I don't think it has to be in person. There's some really cool online hangouts where you can network. But I think you have to be willing to give away in order to get with networking. And I found when I network, the way I would network most effectively is by giving away my stuff without worrying about them just taking it and running with it. Because if you do, God bless you, and if you don't, you're not my customer anyway, so.
Just a quick thing that I think really works if you are going around to lots of groups of people and wondering what to say and not meeting the right people, is just to go and ask other people lots of questions. And that's the best way. When you chat to people, ask them lots of questions, you found out so much stuff. It's really interesting. Have a good time, even if you don't think anything's going to come out of it. Often things come out. Things appear today where we laid the seed to them 8 years ago at some function. I'm always bumping into people that I first met when I actually first started my business, where I did spend a lot of time going to things. Kiss a lot of frogs. There's a lot of networking things I would never go to again. I turned up thinking, okay, it's only an hour. I can stay for longer. I'd go and chat to as many people by asking them questions. Never talked about myself. People will ask you eventually about you. It doesn't matter if they don't ask you much. They are not going to go along and suddenly buy your thing there and then invest money or do whatever. But if you ask them questions and appear to be interested, you will start a friendship and a relationship, and that is the important thing. And just a little aside just on the coffees and asking people for coffee. It's just because this is something I do have a little bit of bee in my bonnet about, and everyone is encouraged, people are always encouraged to say, hey, phone that person up, ask if you can go for a coffee, but you're taking something very precious from that person, and that's their time. And I can't tell you how many times I get asked, oh, is it okay if we just meet for a coffee, just meet for a coffee? I could just spend all my days meeting people for coffee, and I don't even drink coffee, tea. But that could be my whole thing, and so I have to say no to people. So I actually have a little quota of how many coffees I'll do, and I do that. And so the people who sort of get through are the ones who have put a little bit of effort in, or been referred to me by somebody, or who aren't just I want to pick your brains, but I could be anybody. There's a reason. So they've sort of done their research as to why they want to speak to me. And I think that's really important, because otherwise you can feel a bit frustrated that nobody's accepting your coffees, or that people don't want to sort of see you again after that one coffee, because actually you sort of wasted their time.
Liz, I'm going to hand you the microphone in a second, but Julie's just said something that I just want to pick up on before it disappears out of my brain again. Men in the audience, God bless you, I love men, live in a house full of men. But I've got a tip for all these gorgeous ladies in the audience here. If you are talking to a man at a networking function that involves alcohol, and you ask him lots of questions, how many of you have found yourself listening to his entire life story and you don't get a word in edgeways? How many of you have had that experience? Yeah. To your point, no, shush. To your point about asking questions, but if it is
family, you speak to somebody for, and if they're not interacting with you after 5 minutes, you say, thank you very much, I'm just going to go talk to that person over there, and you go. You don't have to stick with anybody who you're not getting anything from.
You don't, but that is absolutely true. But if you do need to meet this person for a specific reason, then you do have to flip the conversation around and go, now let me tell you about me. And they'll go, okay. So don't be afraid to say, let me tell you about me.
So what's your name?
Amy.
Amy.
Yeah.
What's your startup, Amy?
So it's a marketplace for creative services.
Okay, great. So everyone is your customer.
What services, sorry?
Creative services,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So when you first start out, because you just started out, right? How do you know who's valuable? As in going to a network event.
Yeah.
How do you know who's valuable?
Well, I usually just pick out the people I like the look of.
Oh, well, that is a good place to start. It's a good place to start. So I've been thinking about this a lot lately, because I was thinking about my why, and I really like people. And I was like, I've read all of the things about your time is valuable, and it is. There is no question. So is everyone else's time. Who here feels like they have enough time? Right, okay? So everyone, it's sometimes even with startup founders, it's like a war over who can have the calendar tool first to someone, because it's I'm so busy, you have to sign up to my tool. Well, no, my tool's better. The point that I'm making is, you don't know who's valuable or who isn't, because you are just starting out. So you as a CEO and founder have to talk to everyone. You have to go to everything, because that is the only way that you are going to make any kind of connections with anyone. And you're not going to know if they're valuable or if they aren't, yet. They could be valuable now or they couldn't be. What I'm trying to do is manage my time so that I can actually have more coffees with people, because I like people. Running a business is really freaking hard. That is actually not fun to me. Parts of it are, but I'm not an operationally minded person, and I have to design a website and set up process. I would rather have a coffee with you for 2 hours and tell you everything that I've learned, because that's what I'm passionate about. So I'm trying to find people like you to have coffees with, but stuff you all into these 2 little things in my calendar, which I've reserved, right? So networking events are not going to be very good, some of them, always. But you don't know who's valuable. Who here eats food? So, right. So it's like, you know, yes, your time is valuable. Yes, you don't want to have coffees. Like, the thing that pisses all of us off is when you send us an email like, I saw you on a panel, let's have a coffee. This is, you know, like, tell me when you're free. You're like, really? Because I don't even know you, and I don't have time to hang out with people I actually like and know, let alone, like, have a coffee with you that I don't know. But, like, you know, you're a human being, okay? So just go into a room and say, you know, like, this is what I'm doing. You know, like, you can ask them questions, but also say, I need help with this. People love helping other people. They love it. There's nothing that anyone likes better than to give advice to someone else. It might be totally shit, which is fine, because at least you have that bond with that kind of person. I have turned down coffees with people that I realized after, I'm like, I totally should have had a coffee with them, because I was trying to do all the I'm valuable with my time and blah, 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 blah. Like, who's introducing you to that person has a lot to do with it as well. But like, you know, you're a startup and you're hustling. You don't have the opportunity to try to qualify people, like who's important and who isn't important. Just get out there, because if you are good at what you do, you are going to attract people that want to speak to you, and then you kind of learn to like cope. When you just started out, like, you just got to get out there and do things, and just be comfortable with you. Like, walk over to someone and say, what do you do? What do you do? And they will talk to you forever until you say, this is what I do. And then they're like, oh, okay. You know? So I could be full of crap. Like, you know, listen to me or don't listen to me. But I have been in your shoes 2 years ago, and the only reason I am sitting on the stage is because of other people. My product is okay. The food is always good. My online experience could be a lot better. But I tell everyone, I've told all of you, I'm a salesperson, and I'm going, look guys, go on my website, but like, if you don't find anything you really like, you can send me an email and maybe we can, because that's a connection that I now have with you. I have been honest, I've been transparent, and I have candor. And you know I'm not full of crap. So even if you go on my website tomorrow and there's nothing that you find, you're gonna feel a little twinge, because you're like, I really wanted to use that because I like her. Because when it's ready, you might use it. I could be full of shit, right? But I've been in your shoes 2 years ago, and the only reason I'm here is because of people like Nick, who believed in me, who saw me at an event, who I talked to. I didn't even know who he was. I didn't know he was the Mick Lebinskas. I was just like, hey, I have an idea. What do you think? How amazingly fortuitous that it happened to be the entrepreneur in residence at Murray, who is the only reason I really have a career. So, other than me.
Does anyone else have?
Oh, hi ladies, I'm Rebecca. I've just started an online fitness and nutrition program. Yes.
I know,
I'm glad you're excited. We can talk later. We talked about that earlier with Claudette. She's like, these chairs were so heavy, I need your program. Oh, sorry. You look amazing, of course. My question is, so this is all very new to me. We launched 5 weeks ago. Never really considered investment, but obviously looking now about all the things we want to do and the lack of time I've got working full-time elsewhere. Never thought about an exit strategy, and I just wondered what your views on seeking investment if you don't have an exit strategy, whether investors will look at you or whether you really need to define that.
Well, I have the mic on, so I'll just be really quick. So I did not have an exit strategy for a really long time, because I did the same thing you did. I started a business and I worked full-time, 2 jobs for a year and a half. And I went, when I first started, I went, I would never sell YouTube. I love this. Now, I'm like, all right, I'm ready. Like, let's talk to menu log tomorrow, because I'm tired. But like so the first thing that I thought of when you said, I'm like, MyFitnessPal, you could sell to MyFitnessPal. Like, look at who else is in your niche, or like in your area. Because I don't know the statistics. I should probably know my numbers, but I don't know the statistics around like failed businesses and the amount of investment that is put into businesses that are not successful. I should probably know. Yes, right, it's high, right? Like, that's all we need to know. So like, if you have an idea, if you say, look, MyFitnessPal, or like, and what do you want to do? Do you want to sell your business in 5 years, or do you want to do it for the rest of your life? So if you don't know, you probably shouldn't raise any money, because you are going to waste everyone's time, including your own, which you don't have because you're working full-time and you got this. So like, figure out what your business actually does and what you're good at. You currently have an income, so you don't have to know those. Like, get a little bit, and again, I could be full of crap, don't listen to me, you know. But again, being in your shoes not too long ago, like take some more time to figure out what your business actually does and what you want. Because if you don't want to sell your business in 5 years for a lot of money, investment might not be for you. You might want to speak to someone like Mel and be like, you know, I need 50 grand, I have a mortgage. That will probably be better for you. Me, I'm like, all right, I'm ready, you know?
The best thing I heard you say was, I started my business 5 weeks ago. I came here and I hadn't even thought about an exit strategy. So the fantastic thing is you're now thinking, should I be thinking of an exit strategy? So that's great. And that's what I think nights like tonight are fantastic for, is if you walk away with that one thing, an exit strategy, I never thought about that. And it's not to say you're going to have investment, it's not to say that you're going to sell, but you're not thinking about that. So I think I would ask more questions. So what do you want to do? What's your model? How could an investor invest? How much? What's your potential earning? What do you want it to be? Do you just want it to be something on the side because you love your job? And this is just an awesome hobby. Okay, maybe not. Or do you want to be the next Michelle Bridges, blah, blah, blah. Like, it's, oh God, yeah, much better. That was a given. Yeah, I just didn't want to be self-Michelle. So I think it's just putting more thought around that. But the best thing you said was, I didn't know, and now I know.
Just in my experience, you know, businesses change so much. In the first 5 weeks, your business is what it is now. In a year's time, it'll be a different business, and in 2 years' time, it'll be different to that. And so it's lovely to think about the concept of an exit strategy, but the business will not be what you think it is now, and so you don't need to think about that, because you will go down a different path. Because part of the thing about starting a business is you think the world looks like a certain way, and as soon as you dip your toe into that water and really start swimming around it, you realise the world does not look like that at all. And so nobody at the very beginning really knows what their exit strategy is, because the world is a different shape.
You said exactly what I was going to say. The last word.
We enormously appreciate what you've shared tonight. I can point to moments in my own business startup ownership journey where it was conversations I had with people that kept me going. I really hope that everyone here tonight has got at least one piece of information, something to think about that will help you sustain your business. You're in a room full of people who are here because they want to think about business ownership, they want to think about tech, they want to think about growth. In terms of who should I be speaking to, please take the opportunity right now to speak to each other. The Legal Vision team are going to be pouring immense numbers of glasses of wine for you. There's more food. We want you to stay, we want you to talk to each other, we want you to really make the most of the evening. We also want to help you take action. So we're going to follow up with an ebook which will touch on things we know business owners struggle with because we help them with them each day. It'll include finance, it'll include capital raising, and it includes pieces from each of our panellists tonight. We've also recorded the panel, and that will be available for people, including people who couldn't be here. And we have a special offer in our ebook for you as well, in terms of a discount on legal services.
Can you send it to me?
Thank you everyone who came tonight. We know you've given up your time and we really appreciate your attention and your superb questions. Thank you so much to Julia, to Sarah, to Melissa, to Liz. We have a gift for each of you in Legal Vision Orange. It comes in a bottle. We'll just get that.
It's orange juice, don't you? That's what she's trying to get out.
Terms and conditions,
As Anne, who's had a lot of impact on people, was her 88th birthday yesterday, Maya Angelou. I wanted to leave you with some thoughts from her. She said, My mission in life is not merely to survive, but to thrive. With passion, compassion, humour and style. We hope tonight we've helped with that journey for you. And here's to your success with passion, compassion, humour and style. Thank you.
As Ursula said, please stay, come talk to us, come talk to our panellists, talk to each other. You have excellent icebreakers, what you learned, how great the food is. But thank you again for coming.